Today I'm taking a look at the Xvive PX system. This is a 3-channel personal mixer monitor system. It transmits audio over Ethernet cable, and you have 3 different mono channels to mix your in-ear monitors with. So let's take a look at what comes in the box here. This is the audio mixer that you would wear on you. This is the PXA. It's got your headphone input and your volume control, as well as whether it's running off of battery or a 9-volt power source. On the other side, we have the Cat5 Ethernet connection, which the audio runs through. We have a belt clip for wearing it. And inside, we have our battery compartment, as well as 3 dip switches here. The dip switches turn on and off the left and right channels, so you can have it mono in both ears, or only on the left or only on the right, and that is switchable for each channel. On the other end, we have the PXB. This is where the Ethernet cable connects, and we've got 3 XLR plugs, as well as a standard 9-volt adapter. I have tested this with your stock 9-volt guitar pedal adapters, and it works and powers up just fine. They also include 3 XLR to 1/4-inch adapters, which is important and I will be using later. Lastly, we have our Ethernet cable, and this is quite a solid Ethernet cable. It looks kind of like an XLR. It does have a similar housing to an XLR, but it is your shielded Cat5 Ethernet cable, and I believe this one is 25 feet long. Now, you could use any Ethernet cable, so you could use a cheap 100-foot run if you needed it, but this is a shielded cable. It's going to have better noise performance, and it's going to lock into the PX system. I've got an audio interface here with a bunch of outputs, and this isn't the typical scenario for this because normally you'd be using a live mixing board that has a whole bunch of outputs. I don't have an analog mixer or a digital mixer that has a whole bunch of outputs, so I'm going to show it off with an audio interface instead. In this case, all my outputs are 1/4-inch, so I'm going to use the adapters. Once the PXB is hooked up to the outputs of your mixer, you just take the Ethernet cable from one end to the other. Here you have the PXA, the belt-worn pack for the musician. Now they're wired up with the Ethernet cable. You simply connect your in-ear monitors, and you have your volumes for each channel here and your overall headphone volume. Now you can power this whole system off a fairly standard 9-volt adapter. This is a 9-volt center negative, 500 milliamp per unit, or you could hook up multiple units with a daisy chain if you have enough amperage on your 9-volt power supply. If you're using the 9-volt power supply, set the switch to PoE, power over Ethernet, and if you're using battery, you can flip it down to use the internal batteries in this unit. It's quite a cool little personal mixer. Now, the best use for this is when you have a live rig with a lot of outputs on your mixer. And you're going to need a few outputs in order to really take advantage of this. If you have an analog mixer that only has a stereo out, it's not going to do you a whole lot of good with this. So you need a larger mixer to take full advantage of something like this. As far as the product itself, everything is really high quality and sturdy. I don't have any complaints. If you want a longer Ethernet cable, it's not proprietary. It's just an Ethernet cable. They're really cheap and easy to get. I'm glad the power works off just a standard 9-volt power supply. That's a smart feature. It's a normal 1/8-inch jack for your IEMs. Everything is well thought out. Now, having 3 mono channels means you're only going to have the potential of 1 stereo mix and 1 extra channel. But if we were to expand this to 3 different stereo mixes, you would need 6 outputs, and that would just start to get a little bit too cumbersome. So 3 makes sense. You could have a stereo mix and a metronome, or a stereo mix and a vocal or something else like that, or your part and the rest of the band, however you want to do it, or you can run 3 different mixes in mono. What I did with the little demo track there was just bus everything to groups and had a bass group and a melody, guitars and synth group, and a drum group. So you can really route things however you want. If you have a digital mixer, you can create custom mixes for different people, as long as you have a mixer that's capable of that and you set up all the routing correctly. I think it's a great mixer, especially if it's in a more permanent setting, maybe at a studio or a church, where you can have these for all the different musicians and they're kind of set up and ready to go. You don't have to do a whole bunch of wiring at the gig, or for a really large touring act, I could see these being quite handy. It's nice to see more products using audio over Ethernet. I think that's a smart way to go for a lot of devices in the future. I don't know that you could do something like this easily without a ton of bulk, without using audio over Ethernet. As for price, at the time of publication, I saw it listed new at B&H for $130. That's all I've got for today. I hope you've enjoyed this. As always, smash like, subscribe. I'll see you in the next video.